And I, a 26-year-old male, broke up with my girlfriend of 4 years, Mary, a 27-year-old female, about a month ago because she asked me to open our relationship. It was, and always will be a major line in the sand for me, something that I have opened up to her about in the past. We've had a great relationship, and the only thing that stands out, and the only reason it stands out now, is because of this situation, is that she progressively started making a lot more intimacy jokes about some of our shared friends over the last few months. Some involved her being with them, and others were three-way jokes, etc. I won't lie, I played along a little, but I consistently made some joking response along the lines of, "You're more than enough for me," and/or, "I don't like sharing." I never took any of it seriously, because why would I? Until she asked, and I realized that she was probably trying to gauge my response and see how open I was. Mary asked when we were getting ready for bed about a month ago, kind of bluntly. I was scrolling on my phone, and she was getting changed and said, "If I asked you to open the relationship, would you?" This might sound super corny, but it was like I had an out-of-body experience and all of the above hit me at once. All the jokes and comments so far made sense in a she's trying to butter me up to the idea kind of way, and I went really numb for a second. To her credit, she must have seen how freaked out I was and asked if I was okay. I pretended I didn't hear her and asked her to repeat herself, and she was really hesitant to, kept saying she didn't say anything and only repeated it when I insisted. Then I went to voice notes, set it to record, and put my phone down to talk to her. I don't remember much of it, just that I tried to stay calm and keep her talking, but the note is just over an hour and a half long, and it feels like I'm listening in on a conversation that happened between two strangers. She slowly revealed everything throughout it, and ultimately stuck to the idea that she hadn't been cheating and didn't have any one person in mind, but had been fantasizing about mutual friends and people at work. She seemed to get the idea that they'd be open to something if she asked. A lot of it is her being defensive and me trying to get information out of her without it escalating into an argument. A lot of me placating her and trying to make her feel comfortable enough to keep talking. The apartment is mine, and I suggested we take a break a few nights later, so she went to stay with a friend for the weekend. By the next Monday, I had spoken to some of my friends and my sisters separately and come to the conclusion that we were done and suggested she start looking for somewhere else to stay. She was upset, but didn't really argue and had the vast majority of her stuff out and at her parents' house by the end of the week. So, coming to 2 days ago, her mom reached out over WhatsApp to say she was disappointed in how I'd handled everything. The message wasn't really framed in a way that she was reprimanding me, more that she wished we could have worked it out. She then added me to a group chat with her husband, my ex's stepdad, and they both kind of tag-teamed me, saying that we could work it out, I was making a mistake, and that I shouldn't overthink things. I eventually got it out of them that my ex had fed them a very vague story that we had broken up because she'd wanted to take the next step in our relationship, and that I'd freaked out, we'd argued, and she'd been effectively kicked out. Her stepdad was leaning on the fact that he thought I was more mature than this, and her mom just kept repeating how disappointing this whole situation was. So I was angry. In the heat of the moment, I told them I had the recording of our conversation that I could send that would explain what she actually meant about taking the next step. I initially tried to email it to them, but it was being a hassle, so I eventually shared it via Google Drive. In the meantime, I took a few screenshots of my ex and my messages, ones where she had made jokes and comments about intimacy with our friends and a lady from her office, and sent them along to that shared chat group. I haven't heard back since. Again, it's been 2 days, and I don't feel as vindicated anymore. A good few of my ex's comments were about other women, and I'm freaking out because I don't know how, if at all, open she's been about her sexuality with them. I also think I shouldn't have engaged at all, and I shouldn't have felt the need to prove my innocence to either of them. Am I the antagonist? I've checked in with friends and over social media, and it doesn't look like there has been any fallout. Also, my ex blocked me a week ago before I spoke to her parents, so I can't really contact her without going in person. And at this point, is it too late to even give her a heads up or check in? To add, trigger warning for intimacy attack. To address a few points, I have seen in multiple comments. We don't live in the United States, and we have no laws on recording private conversations on the books. I am not proud of doing it, but it wasn't illegal. Mary and I had several mature, calm conversations about what we both wanted out of this relationship. Mary wasn't sure if she wanted to stay and kind of admitted to self-sabotaging by asking about opening the relationship. Mary and I have been friends since we were 11. Her mom was my coach when I swam competitively, and our friend groups and families are very close and intermingled. So she was wary about what would happen if we went on a break or fully broke up. I was not trying to punish her for being open to polyamory. Trigger warning below. Mary and I are both bisexual, and when I was in my last year of high school, I was involved in an inappropriate relationship with a teaching assistant. He was arrested and registered as an intimacy offender, but during the time we were involved, he convinced me to be with other people as well. He effectively exploited me for a year and physically attacked me when I eventually said no and tried to cut him off. Mary knew all of the above as she helped me through it at the time, and I was very clear that I can't do something like that again. I know that what I went through wasn't an actual open relationship, but it was very much framed as one, and that has stuck with me. I would never put down other people for doing it, but I made this all very clear to Mary and the other serious relationship I was in before her. I've carried a lot of issues from then into future relationships, and I am in therapy and have worked with Mary to not punish her for what other people have done to me. For as great and supportive as Mary was, she did have an issue with trying to manipulate me. She would say one thing and then, typically during an argument, would vehemently argue otherwise and genuinely make me question myself. It took her coming to therapy with me and me sometimes showing her texts for her to realize this was a problem and we had been working on it together. Me recording her was still not right, but it wasn't an attempt to gather something incriminating. It was just a response. It was a poor response that I shouldn't have done, but it wasn't malicious, nor did I intend to send it to anyone at the time. Also, since making this post and reading your replies, I have gone back to her parents to apologize. I did initially try to tell them that she wasn't being honest and that I wanted to keep things private, but they kept going on about me being immature and that this was disappointing. I'll be honest, I got a bit angry again rereading some of their messages, but it really didn't warrant me outing Mary the way I did. I appreciate everyone's judgment. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. No, you are not the antagonist. Leave her to clean up her own mess. No one forced her to lie about the reason for the breakup. I hate people like this. Why do people who ruin their relationship always seem to feel the need to make up a reason for the breakup that blames the innocent partner? How incredibly hard is it to just say we grew apart or want different things if you're not willing to tell the truth? You owe her nothing. Comment 2. It sucks, but they really piled on. I would have just said she wanted an open relationship, and then if they didn't believe you, offered the evidence. But I totally get being accused of something you didn't do with the additional piling on. I would have sent it. Just block all of them and find someone who loves you or enjoy being single for a while. Sorry, I know it hurts right now. Now for the update. I'm back with another update. It's been a while since my last post, but I feel like now's the time to share. Sorry if this is kinda long, but there's a lot to cover. About 3 weeks after my last update, I got a text from Mary's mom. It was super unexpected. She asked for clarification on the recording and if there was any chance to resolve things. I was like, wow, this is awkward. So I explained everything again, basically saying I didn't think there was any chance to fix things after what happened. Mary's mom replied and expressed her disappointment, saying that Mary had only wanted to explore their relationship further. I was like, really? That's it? Just wanted to explore? But I kept my cool. I spent a few days thinking about reaching out to Mary directly, but her social media was still blocked. I was so frustrated. I felt like I was in a position where I couldn't say anything, so I decided to reach out to some mutual friends to see what Mary was saying about me. One friend mentioned that Mary was talking about how she felt betrayed and that her family was supportive of her. I was like, what the heck? They want to support her in this. I decided to go to a local bar where I knew a few of our friends would gather for trivia night. I was hoping to overhear some conversations about the situation, maybe get a clearer view of what was going on. While at the bar, I overheard two friends discussing Mary's parents and how they planned to confront me about the recording. I was sitting there trying to act casual, but inside I was just like, are you serious? They're going to confront me? A week later, I got a message from one of Mary's friends inviting me to a birthday party for a mutual acquaintance. I wasn't sure if I should go, but I needed to know what was going on, so I decided to check it out. At the party, I spotted Mary across the room, laughing with her friends, and I felt this sudden rush of adrenaline. I approached her, trying to keep it casual. I was like, hey, how's it going? But she immediately turned cold and dismissed me. I don't know what got into me, but I raised my voice and asked her why she was spreading lies about me. The conversation escalated quickly, and everyone around us started to notice. She accused me of being controlling and manipulative, claiming I was the real problem in our relationship. I was fuming. Her accusations sparked a heated argument, with both of us yelling, and even more people started to watch. I felt cornered, so I pulled out my phone and played the recording of our previous conversation. I just wanted to prove my point. The room fell silent, and the atmosphere shifted as people processed what they were hearing. It was like everyone was in shock. Mary's expression changed from anger to shock, and she quickly left the room, clearly upset. I followed her outside. She was pacing and visibly angry. As we argued, her mom showed up out of nowhere, demanding to know what was happening. I explained the situation, showing her the recording as proof of Mary's comments about our friends. Mary's mom looked taken aback, realizing her daughter hadn't been completely honest with her. After a tense standoff, Mary stormed off, and her mom was just left there, looking conflicted. A few days later, I learned from a mutual friend that Mary was moving to a different city, seeking a fresh start. I got a message from Mary's mom thanking me for being honest and saying that she would always support her daughter. I decided to block Mary on social media. I just felt like it was best for both of us, honestly. So yeah, life went on. I focused on myself, hung out with friends, and tried to move forward. But then, a few months later, I ran into Mary at a local coffee shop. We were both surprised, but couldn't ignore the tension in the air. We exchanged a few awkward words about how we were doing. It was clear that our lives had taken such different paths, and there was no going back. Mini update. I haven't talked to Mary since that awkward coffee shop encounter. A few weeks later, I got a text from one of our mutual friends asking if I was going to a wedding in our group. I wasn't sure if I should go, but I wanted to see if Mary was attending. Am I the idiot for wanting to ban my fiancé's best man from our wedding after learning he assaulted his sister? I'm marrying my high school sweetheart, who is 29 years old, in a little over a month, and I'm in a difficult position. I could use some advice. My fiancé is the oldest of three and has a younger sister, who is 25 years old, and a younger brother, who is 23 years old. I'll call his sister Riley for the sake of this post, and I like her, but we're not especially close. I invited her to be one of my bachelorettes since my fiancé invited my two older brothers, and it seemed like the right thing to do. My bachelorette party was this past weekend. It was a lot of fun, but on the last night, Riley had way too much to drink. I walked her back to the hotel since she doesn't know my friends too well. On the way back, Riley started crying and said she didn't want to go to the wedding. I asked why, and she told me that my fiancé's best man, let's call him Paul, rapped her when she was in 8th grade. Riley told me that my fiancé invited a bunch of guys over, including Paul, and she was literally asleep in her room when he came in and sexually attacked her. She said she tried to forget about it, but our wedding is bringing up all these memories. Aside from me, the only person she's ever told is her boyfriend and best friend. She begged me not to tell anyone. I honestly don't think she'd have told me this if she hadn't been intoxicated. I don't even know if she remembered that she told me because she didn't bring it up the next morning and she treated me normally. I fully believe what Riley told me. I like my fiancé's friends, but Paul has always seemed a bit off to me. Once in college, a bunch of our high school friends went out drinking while we were all visiting for Christmas break. I was in the back seat of a car with Paul, and I couldn't get my seatbelt buckled. I was very drunk. He buckled it for me, but then kept his arm wrapped around me for the entire drive. I was confused since I was dating his best friend and didn't know what to do. Today, I'd tell him not to touch me. I kind of forgot this happened until Riley told me her story, and I went back and started thinking about all my interactions with Paul over the years. I'm now in a tough position because I don't want to share Riley's trauma with anyone since it's so personal. But I also feel uncomfortable with a rapper standing next to me while I say I do and making Riley see the man who violated her when she was younger. I also don't want to see Paul anymore at social events because he might be dangerous. I know if I tell my fiancé, he'll do the right thing and stand up for his little sister. He also might confront Paul. I want Paul out of the wedding and out of our lives, but I don't want to betray Riley's trust. Would I be the wrong person for telling my fiancé? I feel horrible and don't know what the right thing to do is. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. You tell him there's something very serious you need to tell him, and that in order to keep the promise you made and the privacy of the person who told you this information, you will not be able to give him or answer all his questions. You ask him to please trust that you are being honest with him and honoring a person's wishes. That means a lot to you because he loves his little sister. So I'm assuming she does mean a lot to you as well. Once he understands how serious this is, you tell him plainly, do not sugarcoat this. You tell him exactly what you know Paul is and the times he has made you feel uncomfortable, no matter how small. And ask your fiancé to please take your experiences seriously and not try to brush them aside or explain away how you took these encounters with Paul. If your fiancé then insists on knowing who the victim is, you just apologize and shut your mouth. At this point, it's not about who the victim is or validating what the victim said happened. It's now about your fiancé's reaction that tells you the type of person he is. There is no easy way to move forward from this point. You know, and there's no unknowing it. Now, Riley also needs support, and hopefully she can get some help to overcome this trauma. Comment 2. Yes, you would be the jerk for telling your fiancé without talking to Riley first when she's sober. She begged you not to tell her when she was drunk. So, when she's sober, sit down with her in person and ask her permission to tell your fiancé. Tell her your experience with Paul, that you had forgotten, and that you're not comfortable with him at your wedding. Hopefully, she will give you permission to tell your fiancé and remove Paul from the wedding. If she doesn't, you have a difficult decision, but you have to talk to her first, and she might be willing to let you. Your moral culpability for telling after you asked to tell when she was sober and she said no is different from what you're facing now. Now there's a potential easy way out, and you have to at least try it. Do this as soon as possible. The closer to the wedding Paul gets the boot, the more drama it will cause. Now for the update. 3 days have passed since the bachelorette party and Riley's shocking revelation about Paul. I feel like I've been in a daze, just going through the motions. I can't shake the anxiety about the wedding, and I feel like I'm going to throw up every time I think about what will happen to Riley's trust if I tell Mark the truth. It's been a mental tug of war, and I'm exhausted. I decided to talk to Mark about my non-specific concerns regarding Paul. I know it was a weak and vague approach, but I was backed into a corner and didn't know what else to do. When I brought it up, Mark brushed off the discussion and insisted that Paul was a good friend and had never done anything wrong. I could feel my heart sinking, but I didn't know how to fight against this wall of denial. 2 days later, we were at a family dinner with Mark's parents, who were hosting. The atmosphere was super tense. They asked about the wedding plans, and I mentioned needing to finalize the guest list, which unfortunately included Paul. Mark's younger brother, Jason, asked if Paul was really coming, and I could see the discomfort in his eyes. It was like a tiny crack in the wall, and I wanted to pry it open, but was afraid of what might come tumbling out. Later that evening, while cleaning up after dinner, I overheard a heated conversation between Mark and Jason in the kitchen. Jason admitted that he had been uncomfortable around Paul since high school due to rumors. Mark became defensive, insisting that Jason was just spreading gossip, and I could feel my heart racing. Mark's parents overheard and seemed surprised, but didn't comment, which only added to the tension. The following weekend, we attended a family barbecue at Mark's aunt's house. I was on edge the entire time, and I felt like everyone could see right through me. Then Riley showed up unexpectedly, looking anxious but determined. She pulled me aside and insisted that she needed to tell Mark the truth about Paul. During a game of charades, Riley suddenly stood up and announced that she had something important to say. The room went silent, and Mark looked shocked. His parents exchanged worried glances, and Jason looked visibly uncomfortable. Riley started to cry, and Mark immediately went to comfort her, setting aside the game. Mark's parents asked Riley to explain further, and she reluctantly shared more details about what had happened with Paul. The tension in the room escalated as Mark demanded to know why he had never been told. I tried to intervene, explaining my dilemma and my desire to protect Riley, but it didn't help. In a fit of rage, Mark turned on me, accusing me of keeping secrets and lying by omission. The atmosphere was so thick with tension that I could barely breathe, and Mark's parents were trying to mediate. They had no idea how deep this went, and I wanted to scream. Jason, feeling the pressure, admitted that he had heard rumors about Paul but had never confronted Mark about them. My heart sank as I realized how many people had known and stayed silent. In a surprising twist, Mark's mom revealed that she had experienced a similar situation in her past. She shared her story, and for a moment, there was unexpected understanding. Mark softened a little, realizing the gravity of the situation, but he still felt betrayed by both Riley and me. At that point, everything fell apart, and Riley left the party, overwhelmed by the escalation, and Mark, still angry, told me that he needed time alone to think. Days later, I received a text from Mark asking for a meeting at our favorite coffee shop. I felt a mix of dread and relief. At least he was willing to talk, but I didn't know what kind of conversation it would be. Now I'm sitting at the coffee shop, waiting for Mark and ready to face whatever comes next. To answer a few questions, I didn't know about the rumors until the barbecue. I was shocked to learn that so many people were aware of Paul's behavior. I didn't have any details about the rumors, but they seemed to be about inappropriate behavior and uncomfortable experiences. I didn't know if the rumors were true, but I felt uneasy about Mark's defensiveness. I didn't want to involve my family because I didn't want to put them in a difficult position. My brothers were aware of some uncomfortable situations with Paul, but not the full extent. Mark and I haven't had any other issues. Am I the idiot for refusing to let my cheating brother back into my life after he abandoned me for his unfaithful wife? About 9 years ago, my brother's wife left him for another man. She was cheating on him all that time. My brother was devastated. They had married very young. I was always against it, and I had my brother in my apartment for months. He had fallen into a severe depression, and I was the one who paid for his psychologist since he didn't have money and even lost his job because he didn't even want to move from the couch or bathe. I even gave him a bath. I wasn't bothered by that. I did everything for my brother. She just left and blocked him everywhere. She simply confessed to him that she had been cheating on him for a year and that she was in love with that man. 4 years after that, when my brother was finally starting to feel better, she reappeared in everyone's life. The typical thing happened. She and her lover were no longer together. She had begun to receive psychological help and changed completely. She felt regretful. She was really sorry, etc. I told my brother all the time to cut off contact with her for the sake of his mental health. He didn't. I always had a bad feeling, and I could smell the trouble from afar. He started to justify her past actions all the time by saying that she changed, they were too young, she was having problems, etc. and he got angry when I told him that she was still a bad person. Shortly after that, they got back together, and my brother cut off all contact with me because I didn't accept their relationship, and he didn't want anyone to come between them. I told him to leave, and we didn't talk anymore. Now for an update. My brother has reappeared at my house after years without him wanting to talk to me, only to tell me that his wife cheated on him again, but this time they have children. In the past, I would have let him in, hugged him and everything, but he has gone years without even inviting me to meet his children. He has not even spoken to me to congratulate me on my marriage or on my pregnancy. I even invited him to my wedding, and he didn't come. I told him that at this moment I can't let him be in my house, which is actually true because I can't have that kind of stress. He told me that we are siblings and he needs me, but I told him that I needed him too, but he was never there, and he cut me off for that woman. We had an argument, and my husband ended up kicking him out because I was already crying. He's staying with our parents now, and my mother just tells me it's not the time to hold a grudge against him and he needs me, but I can't forget how he didn't think twice before cutting off all contact with me for her. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the jerk. He's a huge jerk. You paid for his therapy. He lived rent-free in your home. You even helped take care of him because he was so mentally unwell. In return, he cut you off and didn't attend your wedding. Your mother needs to stop interfering. Why didn't she step in when he cut contact with you? He can go seek sympathy and help from his mother instead. You are a good sister. He is a terrible brother. Don't reward his behavior by giving in. Comment 2. Not the jerk. Tell your parents that you cleaned up the mess before, and now it's their turn. You put your life on hold for him, and he treated you poorly. He decided he didn't want you in his life. Now he wants you to put your life on hold again. Now you have a family and have to prioritize them and yourself. Leave that relationship where it was for years. Don't get dragged back into him and his neediness. Now for the update. 2 days after kicking my brother out, I got a text from my mom asking if I could come over for dinner. I was hesitant at first, but then thought it might be a good idea to clear things up with my family. So I decided to go. Big mistake. When I got there, my mom started talking about my brother's situation again, saying he really needed support. She went on about how hard it was for him to find a job after losing his last one. But funny enough, she didn't mention anything about his cheating. My dad jumped in, saying families should stick together, especially in tough times. Like, are you kidding me? They both were acting like he hadn't just cut me off a few years ago. My sister Kate was there too, and she was all, I feel so bad for him. I could feel the frustration building up inside me. Then, to top it all off, my mom served my brother's favorite dish for dinner. Like, seriously? That felt like a direct jab at me. I stayed quiet, but every single bite reminded me of the past and all the crap I've been through with him. After dinner, my mom suggested we all go to the living room to talk. That's when she said that my brother had been texting her and Dad, saying he felt abandoned and was struggling with the kids. My mom asked me to call him so we could all discuss how to help him out. Yeah, right. I wasn't about to be his therapist. I sent a text to him instead, asking if he wanted to talk, but he just ignored it. I saw my parents exchanging these worried glances, clearly concerned about my brother. The next day, I got a call from my brother asking to meet up, claiming he needed to talk about the kids. I reluctantly agreed, and we decided to meet at a diner near my house. He looked disheveled and tired. His eyes were all red-rimmed. I thought maybe he was crying, but whatever. He started talking about how his ex-wife was making things difficult with the kids and how he felt trapped. When I tried to bring up his choices, he shifted the blame onto her. Just like that, he was all about deflecting responsibility. Then he asked me for a loan to help cover his bills because he wasn't getting child support. I said no way, reminding him of the past and how he chose her over family. He got all defensive, saying I didn't understand what he was going through. The waitress brought our food, and he barely even touched it, still focused on his sob story. I finished my meal and excused myself, feeling completely drained. Later that week, my parents invited me over again, this time for a family game night. I showed up, but the atmosphere was just off. My brother was there with his kids. The kids were running around like crazy, and my brother seemed overwhelmed but didn't say a word to me. During a game, my mom made a comment about how the kids needed stability. My brother jumped in, saying he was trying his best but needed help from family. I finally snapped. I said he should have thought about stability before getting back with his ex. The room went dead silent, and everyone just stared at me, shocked. My brother got up and took the kids outside, and my parents looked all disappointed. I left soon after, feeling like the bad guy in my own family. Days passed, and I didn't hear anything from my brother. My parents kept bringing him up, of course. I found out through my sister that my brother was planning to move back in with his ex. My sister was all supportive of him, which just made me feel even more isolated. I confronted my parents about their loyalty to my brother, and they insisted I needed to forgive him. A week later, my brother called, announcing he was moving back in with his ex and wanted to introduce the kids to her. I ended the call abruptly, feeling furious and betrayed by both him and my parents. The next day, I decided to cut ties. I knew it was best for my own mental health. To answer a few questions, my parents have always been forgiving, often overlooking my brother's flaws. They believe in second chances, even if it means neglecting others' feelings. My sister has always sided with my brother, which adds to the tension. My husband supports my decision but feels uncomfortable with my family's dynamic. I haven't spoken to my brother since the call about his ex, and I don't plan to. The silence is unsettling, but I need distance. I'm focusing on my family and maintaining boundaries. This situation has tested my limits, but I'm prioritizing my well-being above all. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.